An entitled, creepy jerk demands that I take off my mask at work, demanding and begging that he be able to look at my face as I'm checking him out. But after I tell this weirdo no several times, he then freaks out and starts to swear at me, claiming that he's gonna try and get me fired with my manager, all because he couldn't look at my pretty face. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction, and I really hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. So this happened just a little over an hour ago. I'm a cashier overnight and I wear a mask. And honestly, I wear it because I want to. I joke and say stuff like, oh, people stink, or I just don't feel like wearing makeup, or even that I'm tired of hearing that I should just smile more, which honestly is all technically true. I had a male customer come in, and my father was also stopping by to drop off some food, with a third guy coming in as well. All three of them were fine. I chatted with my father while the other two shopped, and once they were ready, my father wandered off and let me do my job. The first guy comes up and has a couple of items, and then he asks for a pack of cigarettes behind me. I get his ID and I grab the pack, and then he asks me, well, why are you wearing a mask? And I am used to this question, so I quickly reply by saying, well, I like to wear it. He then looks confused and asks me the same question again, and I repeat my answer a bit slower, thinking that maybe he just didn't hear me, as I do tend to talk fast. I have been compared to a TV auctioneer before, especially when it's something that I've said many dozens of times. But now, this man looks angry. He says to me, well, why can't I see your face? I responded by saying, you do not need to see my face. Will that be all, sir? He then gets really indignant. He says, oh, come on, I just want to see your face. But I say it again, you do not need to see it, sir. You are not entitled to my face. It was then that he said something that honestly blew my mind. He said to me, you're a rude jerk. But instead of jerk, he swore at me. I said to him, okay, sir, have a nice day. And I motioned to the door, trying to get him to leave, since he managed to pay while all this was going on. He then says to me, oh, just show me your face. I mean, come on, are you diseased or something? But I respond back by saying, you do not need to see my face. Have the day that you deserve, sir. At this point, the man was flipping out on me. He says to me, you're such an ugly jerk, you rude idiot. I was trying to be nice. But I just fired back at him and I said, well, you failed in that regard, sir. Have the day that you deserve. The man then said, I'm gonna complain they have an absolute jerk working here. And I just responded back by saying, well, my manager arrives at 6 o'clock in the morning. Again, motioning to the door. The man eventually leaves, still flipping me off in the process. And I noticed during the entire interaction, both the second guy and my father were staring daggers into the angry man. Now, I know my father. He carries and has a license to, if you know what I mean. And if the man had gotten physical across the counter, it would have not ended well. My father has a bad temper, and I still walk on eggshells around him. The second man I'm also sure is retired and likely also carries. He's a regular who has always been very polite to me. He asked me if I was okay and said that he would stay in the parking lot for an extra 10 to 15 minutes just to make sure the angry man wouldn't come back inside, and I really thanked him for that. Well, that's when my father, the delightful man that he is, decided to chime in on this situation. Once both customers had left, he said to me, you know, you could have been nicer, and then proceeded to explain how bad that would have gone and his train of thought for if the man had gotten violent with me. He is a narcissist and one that I've learned to handle. So I went on about how being nice to men like that means becoming the doormat they expect. That if I had been a man with a mask and I'd given him the exact same first response, he would not have taken any issue with it. My dad then says, well, no one wants to see a dude's face, and I should not have to be considered a less than human who has to answer to his demands because I'm a pretty female. But because I'm a woman who wears a mask and I stand behind a counter, I'm just not a human being to that man. If I was a man behind this counter, he would not have even asked a question like that. I do not take pride in this, not even being one of the worst reactions to me wearing a mask, but it was the first time I've had to witness such an interaction, and I honestly just wanted to vent about it, because for most of these, I don't really think about it because I block out most of the interaction, because I've really gotten all too used to people getting mad, all because I like my pretty designed mask. I also did text the incident to my manager, so she does know of the situation, in case he does come back or try to call and complain, because people like that truly are the worst, and I really hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Wow, that is such an awful situation for so many reasons. For starters, that guy was super entitled in like one of the worst ways possible. He somehow felt he was entitled to seeing your face all because you were wearing a mask. Like, dude, what are you doing? You can't just demand somebody take off a mask so you can look at their face. You're not entitled to it. That is really creepy. Because I'm sure some people would be like, can you please put on a mask? You're really ugly. Especially with the way this guy was acting. Like, seriously, it's insane to treat someone like that. But on that note, I love the way you defended yourself. You told this guy, absolutely not, I'm not giving in to your weird demands. Because why should you? Like, that was not going to benefit you in the slightest, and it would only serve this guy's weird purpose of seeing your face. Like, I think there really was a creepy intention behind that, if you know what I I mean? And that is not even something I ever want to think about. Like, seriously, what a weirdo. Now, when it comes to the way your dad acted, that is so unbelievably awful. Like, talk about disappointing. Here he is watching this guy scream and cuss at you for not taking off your mask, and then after like what, maybe 2 seconds of this guy leaving, he stands there and says, wow, you made that a lot worse. You could have at least been nicer. And it's like, what are you talking about? This guy literally just cussed out your daughter and you're sitting there blaming her for that? Nothing she did in that interaction deserved this kind of treatment, like at all. So that's honestly really disappointing, but I think you also handled yourself really well in that scenario too, because you hit the nail on the head. If you were a guy, none of this would have happened in the first place. He would have never asked you to take off your mask, and he wouldn't have been so obsessive about you turning him down and saying no. So truly, good for you for standing up for yourself, because you had no right to be treated like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that he can't go climbing with his friends, but instead, he has to do home renovations like he said he would in the first place? Because right now, he says I'm being unreasonable, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My husband and I decided to renovate the bathroom because there was water damage from a toilet that had been leaking. It was mostly my idea to renovate, but not just for aesthetics, as mold was growing at the bottom of the vanity and the sheetrock. He agreed to renovate, but really had very little interest in the process. He has untreated ADHD and really does not enjoy home maintenance. With that being said, it became my job to apply for loans, search for contractors, schedule the contractors to come out, etc. It was a lot of mental work and I did it alone. He did agree to save the money and offer to demo the bathroom himself, and I was hesitant at first because he is not usually motivated to do things in the house, and also due to the ADHD, his timeline and processing speed is very slow, and oftentimes things just don't get done. He promised me many times that he wanted to do it. I sent him screenshots of the calendar and I told him the days that he would start. The whole week leading up to the demo day, I mentally prepared him. I mean, we've been together for 21 years, so I know how he is. He will say that he forgot, or it will seem like brand new information to him, so every day he gets a reminder. Fast forward to last night, and the night before the demo is to start, he sends me a message asking if he can go climbing with his friends. But I said I would prefer if he just did the demolition like we agreed. He only has 2 days off, so I said no, I'm sorry, you cannot go. Well, this turned into an almost hour argument back and forth about how the weather won't be good for the rest of the days, and that he can just do it then. But again, I know him. He waits until the last minute and something may go wrong. We may need to call for extra help or something like that, and I always have a sense of urgency, and he has none, and it makes my life very difficult. To add to that, he also has a job where he can often do his hobbies. He climbs with his work friends, he goes hiking, he goes skiing, and all this other stuff. When he has days off, he goes for bike rides for hours, meaning that he is absolutely not deprived of leisure time, but I am. I'm a teacher, so I've been home all summer being responsible for my kids 90% of the time, and I'm up with them in the morning, taking them out for activities all day, and I'm putting them to sleep. On top of that, I've cleaned up after the kids and his messes every single day. I haven't had a day of fun the entire summer, so I feel anger and resentment constantly. Our fight ended with him telling me that it makes no sense to tell him that he has to start on this day, and that he'll just do it the next day. He says that I'm the one being unreasonable, and everyone else will agree with him and not me. Also, to add, today is Thursday, and our tile guy comes in on Monday, and the entire bathroom needs to be completely gutted by the morning. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. If you guys scheduled this together, then he needs to do his part and get to work. He can't just put this off because it's more convenient to go rock climbing. Like, of course that's more convenient. Anything would be more convenient than having to work on the bathroom. Like, the excuse could be anything, but I think the original poster's rationale is still right. You said you were going to do it today, so you have to do it. And who knows if this is going to be ready by Monday if you don't do it now. This might be a multi-day job, like you just don't know. Something could go wrong. So yes, I think the original poster is absolutely in the right, and I think the husband in this story is not thinking straight. Because if he was, he would be way more ambitious about getting the work done. An entitled customer decides to make a joke at my expense after I literally had just dropped a plate at our restaurant and burned myself in the process. Here's what happened. So this happened last night and I'm still trying to get over it. So on the rare occasion, I tend to break an empty glass at my restaurant, and it's honestly no big deal. We all do it. It happens maybe once every few months. However, in the almost 3 years that I've worked at this place, I haven't dropped any plates in nearly 2 years. I took a lot of pride in that since I was a bit of a klutz when I first started, and this is my first and only experience in a restaurant. Last night, I was working expo and carrying carrying out these 2 large plates of ribs. Our kitchen space is a bit tight. It's a small business, so the exit and entrance into the kitchen is this archway that's mostly taken up by a fridge just inside. Our ribs come with this homemade barbecue sauce that's taken straight from a pot in the serving section of the expo window. So as you can probably gather, it is very hot, since it's constantly kept in boiling water and under a lamp so hot that I've watched one of the cooks light a birthday candle with it. As I was carrying the plates, I moved just a bit too fast and slammed one right into the wall as I was trying to move the plates in a way that I could go through the archway. Startled, I stumbled back a bit, but that caused the sides and the ribs to slide forward. I'm usually amazing at regaining balance and stopping huge accidents, and I've even prevented some sauce from spilling when being body slammed on accident by a fast-moving server. But this time, I was just too surprised and I fumbled it. Both plates launched forward, not helped by me trying to lean and maneuver fast enough forward to try and physics them back into place. Well, they crashed to the ground, breaking all over the place. Not to mention that my hands were coated in that barbecue sauce, and it really hurt. Like, I've accidentally spilled some on my hands before, and that stuff actually can cause some bad burns. I was too shocked and I just screamed loudly in pain, and my hands were trembling from how hot it was. A server rushed over and he quickly took care of my hand, telling me that it was okay and that it happens to the best of us. But my biggest concern was that I dropped a plate, a customer's food, and I felt so terrible and ashamed about it. He usually likes to tease me a lot when I mess up. It's just kind of a friendly dynamic that we have, so I appreciated that he waited until hours later when I was feeling better to tease me about it. A couple of kitchen staff cleaned it up and told me to go get my hand under some water, and a regular customer that we have who is a fireman offered to look at it too, including another regular who's also a nurse. After all was said and done, I was mostly good, but my hand was still shaking and sore from being burned, so it was pretty red and swollen, stinging sometimes, and I was just upset about what happened. A couple minutes afterwards, I ran plates to a table and I was setting them down. This was an older couple, and the husband looked at me and said, "Oh good, so it wasn't our food that got dropped. It's at least nice to know that you at least didn't manage to drop these too, huh?" Now when he said that, I didn't say anything. I didn't laugh whatsoever, and I didn't even smile. I just stayed silent, and I walked away fast after setting their food down, which made him look at me weird. And honestly, I was so upset. Like, it's one thing if it's someone I work with that I have a friendly banter with, who waits until I'm feeling better hours later and fine with it. But it's another if you're a customer, and it's just making fun of the person who just got visibly hurt, and everybody could see it. Maybe I'm sensitive, but that was just not the time to be saying something like that, or making fun of a complete stranger for dropping things and then getting hurt. Like, everyone heard me scream and saw what happened, so the fact that he would say that was so uncalled for. Wow, that guy's a massive jerk. He seriously decided to try and crack a joke with you as if you guys were friends in some kind of way. You literally just burned your hands on hot food, and this guy's like, "Oh, well, at least he didn't drop our food." It's like, dude, I don't know you. Why are you talking to me like that? And the original poster is right. Like, if you knew this person and there was some kind of like rapport between the two of you, then sure, let's joke around and have a good time. But this is not that situation. You don't know him from anywhere, and here he is chiming in and being like, "Oh wow, you dropped the food. Glad it wasn't ours." So no, I don't think you're being sensitive by being offended by that, because if I had just got burned on hot food, I would be feeling the exact same way. My entitled father unleashes his rage on me after I call him out for being a narcissist, forcing me to defend myself in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so my father and I have always had a strained relationship. I'm a 37-year-old male and my dad is 64 years old. He never prioritized fatherhood or his family, and he is the fifth of 6 children and the only male from my grandparents. And this will be important for context to his personality. He has adult spoiled baby syndrome, and this led to him throwing a temper tantrum anytime he does not get his way. And I use the term temper tantrum now because that's what I see when he is raging and angry. Growing up, my father was awful. He was bad to my mother, my stepmother, to me, and least of all to my younger sister. The best way to describe him is as a bully. He's a big guy. He's 6'2" and he's 250 pounds, but he likes to use his size and anger as intimidation tactics. He does that by biting his lip, hunching his shoulders forward, clenching his fists, and talking through a closed jaw, which really gives off the vibe that he's gonna be violent. I had my absolute fill of this in my youth and left for the military as soon as I could. Fast forward 15 years later, and my dad keeps his tired ways of anger and intimidation. An event took place a couple of weeks ago where my father was dog sitting at my house while I was at school on Saturday. For context, I don't drink, but my dad does daily. For the 10-year anniversary of losing 6 friends in Afghanistan in May of 2013, I purchased myself a very good bottle of bourbon. The bottle sat unopened in my office for over a year, and this past May, I finally cracked open the bottle and I poured myself one small shot. I sat with my dog dog and I sipped my drink and celebrated the men that I feel so honored to have known. I left school a little early that day to drive back to my house, hoping I could meet my dad and we could go out for dinner or something like that. Well, when I get home, he's not there. And then I walk in to see my kitchen completely out of order and that the bottle of bourbon is half gone. Now, I realize it is just alcohol. There is nothing significant about this particular brown liquid. However, it was still important to me. The bourbon was well hidden and placed in a high and discreet place, but there were several bottles of wine on the counter that were all housewarming gifts. When I call my father about it, he belittles his actions. He blames me, deflects, and then he insults me. When I hold his feet to the fire and call him out for his narcissistic tactics, he flips that old angry switch right back on. He then showed up to my house screaming at me, charging at me in my backyard. He was about 6 inches from my face yelling at me, and I backed away from him about 3 times. On the 4th time, he took a step towards me, and that was it. So I launched at him. I went at him offensive lineman style with both hands to the chest, with every single ounce of strength that I could find. He fell back about 15 feet and landed on his back. Then I jumped on top of him and completely immobilized him. I didn't hit him or take any more advantage of his compromised position. I then yelled into his face and I said, "Do you see the power dynamic now?" I then got off of him, expecting him to get up and be in a full-fledged fight physically with my father. Well, he got up and screamed at me, called me by my mother's maiden name, to which I replied, basically implying that he hits women. And every single vulgar or nasty thing he said to me, I just kept repeating my insult. Well, my sister called me a few days later, telling me that my father had broken 2 ribs, to which I responded, "Good, hopefully he learns his lesson." Now, I'm not proud of my actions, but I never wanted to be physical or violent at all. I never wanted this kind of relationship, but honestly, everybody has their breaking point. Good for the original poster for defending themselves. And yes, in my opinion, this absolutely is a self-defense situation. This guy was up in your face, screaming at you, charging you in your backyard. You tried to de-escalate and get away from him, what, 3 times? But this guy kept coming at you and just not letting this go. Not to mention him trespassing on your property and being all up in your face. Like, no, I don't think so. So in my opinion, the way that you retaliated and stopped the situation is completely justified. Like, this is not the time to be nice and try and talk through the situation. It's time to literally do anything you can to keep this guy away from you. So hopefully this guy did learn his lesson and he stays away from you and doesn't try to mess with you in this way ever again, because this behavior is really toxic and very scary, and you should absolutely never have to deal with that. Am I the jerk for refusing to wake my boyfriend up in the morning, as he is constantly sleeping through his alarms and is always incredibly angry and very grumpy with me early in the morning? Because right now he's on the verge of getting fired for being late to work, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I've been with my boyfriend for almost a year now, and during our entire relationship, he has struggled with waking up in the morning because of his ADHD. He sleeps through all of his alarms, which usually means that he is late for work. Sometimes it's only 10 to 15 minutes, but it can also stretch to up to an hour. His boss likes him and has given him plenty of chances, but yesterday he got his last warning that if he doesn't show up on time, he will lose his job. We have had a couple of discussions and arguments about this over the last year because he believes it's my responsibility as his girlfriend to wake him up, but I don't. Despite me waking up from his alarms and being able to shove him out of bed if need be, I don't think it's my responsibility. He is an adult. He has known about his ADHD since he was a child and should by now have found some method that works. Him making it my responsibility turns me into a caregiver and a mother instead of a girlfriend. This doesn't mean I refuse to help him whatsoever. I have done plenty of research to find alternative methods, but either it didn't work or he refuses to do it. And I do wake him up when his alarm goes off, but he decides to go back to sleep right afterwards. Had he not done that, I would gladly wake him up every single day. And I know this is only my perspective and is most likely not true from this, but when he decides to go back to sleep, it makes it seem like he doesn't want to try. Not to mention the fact that he is especially grumpy and angry in the mornings and have on several occasions yelled at me for both waking him up and for not waking him up. And I don't want to help if he's just going to get mad, even though I know that he doesn't mean it. But when his boss gave him his last warning yesterday, I felt so much guilt because had I just woken him up and been persistent, he wouldn't be in this situation. So I'm at an impasse. Is it my responsibility? I mean, am I in the wrong for not helping him out? Or should he, as an adult, be able to do this all by himself, because I really feel like a jerk right now and I just don't know what to do. Okay, this is definitely not your fault. You are not the reason your boyfriend is not waking up on time. For reference, this is a 25-year-old man. Like, at this point, there is literally no excuse for not waking up on time. Like, he is absolutely responsible for his job and his actions, meaning that he has sole responsibility if he does get fired. Because you said it yourself, this guy is grumpy in the morning, and he is either going to yell at you in the morning for not waking him up, or he's going to yell for you waking him up in some kind of way. Like, seriously, buddy, which one is it? Do you want to wake up on time and make a living, or just stay in bed and get fired? Because right now, he is on his last warning. This guy is on the verge of getting fired, and that is literally his own fault. So no, you are not the jerk. You haven't done anything wrong. And honestly, if your boyfriend does end up getting fired, that is 100% on him and nobody else. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.